the Mercedes EQE. Today, very first time driving it ourselves here, full review on Autogefuehl with Thomas. And this is, so to speak, the electric E-Class or electric CLS, depending on how you want to take it. And typical for the EVs, we have a closed front grille. Nice micro star pattern, it's a beautiful feature definitely. But you have this huge black panel, the sensors are hidden behind here, also with the front camera. The headlamps here with a signature and LED is standard. This is the optional digital light for more high beam performance if you like that. It's also the AMG-Line, what you can see here. That means more sporty accentuations in the lower part, but all again closed off. And this very interesting matte grey paint is called Graphite Grey Magno. Really spectacular, always like to see that. Wheels from 19 to 21 inch. These here are 20-inch wheels with aerodynamic covers, because a lot of aerodynamic losses are happening in the wheel and the wheel arches, and this is actually really good then also for the range and so on, but they don't look that cool. Well, what do you think? 4,95 meters or 195 inches is the length. That's about 20 centimeters or 8 inches less or shorter than the Mercedes EQS, the bigger brother. But what they have in common is the same, technology more or less, battery and so on, and this one bow design going from the front to the rear. EQE badge right here. And if you wonder, can you actually open something here? Is there a frunk? No, there is not. They used all the space, for example, also for the HEPA filter that is optionally underneath that one. The only thing you can open here in the front is here, this opening for the wiper fluid. Yeah, that's a funny thing, right, isn't it? And you can also get on top of the AMG-Line here this night package. Then you have black frames around the windows and also these black mirror caps to make it a little bit more sinister even from the look. Technology-wise, what's also interesting is rear axle steering is available. So the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction than the front wheels. That reduces the turning circle massively and gives you more agility at lower speed driving. 4.5 degrees is the first option, and then optional 10 degrees. And that is basically always in the vehicle. It's just then released by software, this second step then. Yeah, that's a trend I don't like that much in the automotive industry. It reminds me more of like, hey, you have like a medieval gaming thing and buy another sword or something. Yeah, you know what I mean. Then here in the rear, you have the light strip going from left to right. Spectacular design indeed. EQE 500 means this is the all-wheel drive model. Also says 4MATIC. One electric motor in the rear, one in the front. Better performance, of course. The EQE 350 would be the one rear drive only. Then you can get the price lower. However, what they do have in common, both with a 91 kWh net battery. What is the range? We will do another test here today. Our experience from the Mercedes technology, also from the EQS so far, is that you can roundabout have, like 400 kilometers, a little bit less, or 250 miles in winter time, and more than summertime and good temperature conditions, more than like 500 kilometers or 350 miles, something like this. But again, another consumption test later on. Here in the AMG-Line, we also have the black accentuation with this diffuser style in the rear. So overall, especially in that color here, a kind of striking look. But what do you think about the design? Tell me in the comments. Recharging, 11 kilowatt or optional 22 kilowatt AC and 170 kilowatt DC. And indeed, when the battery is preheated, 10 to 80% state of charge in 30 minutes. And a little bit more color choices. This one here is Spectral Blue, really beautiful color. Yeah, that's what we call Thomas Blue here on Autogefuehl. Or a brighter gray color is also available. This one here is Alpine Gray. This was also pretty fancy, doesn't it? Suspensions, you start with a normal steel suspension, optional then air suspension. If you pick the rear-wheel drive model, the EQE 350 by the way, it also gets this plus. That means always the plus model is always the one with the highest range, because the rear-wheel drive only version will have a higher range, a little bit more than the all-wheel drive version. The acceleration figures, by the way, 6.4 seconds here to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour for the rear-wheel drive version. And with our all-wheel drive model, the EQE 500 is less than 5 seconds. And then there are also these EQE AMG versions, 43 and 53. We already have a static episode of that. We will link it in the video description and in the pinned comment. See you later there. But let's first continue with this one. Interesting details here when the door handles are opened. So these are flush handles. So when you're close to vehicles, they disappear for more better aerodynamics. When they open the vehicle, it's like this. And you can also, for example, have keyless entry like this, closing, and you open it by pressing this area. And the thing is, sometimes it doesn't work. There we go. So, but not like 100%. So, and then here, door closing sound is actually quite decent, although they are frameless doors. And then Neotext material is kind of like a neoprene-like structure, feels and looks really cool. Red contrast stitches. AMG-Line also comes with a microfiber at the inside of the doors. This feels really premium, nice. They call it Microcut now. What's not that premium, I think, is one button for that whole memory seating and seat heating. That's one big button. And these handles here for the seat control, they do not move, so they don't give you any feedback. You're kind of like moving in thin air. Don't like it. And also hashtag capacitive BS here for the side window controls. So this is not a good trend, I think. This optional Burmester sound system, this one is great, by the way. And then what about the seats? These here are the AMG-Line seats. Here also microfiber inside, outside are the red. So this is an animal-free seat indeed. In Germany you can also get the base seat, so the non-AMG seat with Artico. So it's a full leatherette in black or also in a bright color. In the UK market, you have to go here for the AMG-Line if you want to go animal free. On the US market, you can get the normal seats in full Artico, bright or black. You can also get the AMG-Line seats, but the microfiber on them is sadly not available. Steering wheel, they promised also to offer animal-free versions later on. At the moment, not available yet. But there are two forms. This is the AMG steering wheel in the AMG line. The other one has a different form. Actually, this one is a little bit cooler, but actually a very good size. As for the seating comfort, I have to say, so it's not that you sit down here and say like, oh, there's like bad comfort, but it's also not that you sit down and say like, oh, this is the best seat I've ever experienced. So the seating comfort we'll also see later on when we drive. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", maybe a little bit taller, and you know, when I put the seat all the way down, you wonder, is it all the way down? Because it works for me, but it does get very close as for the headroom, so it's nothing for super tall people. This one here is also equipped with the panoramic roof, so this is an option. And the cool thing is it does have a shade. Not all EVs have that, so it has this electric shade. Then you can also open it. It's not only, I did activate the hazard lights, so if you come closer here you can see I can also completely open it. There we go, and that leaves some light in. But indeed it's not the segment here then for the tallest people. So in a CLS or in an E-Class, the combustion engine versions of these vehicles, they have nothing in common platform wise. You sit a little bit better as a tall person, I have to say. In this interior overview, again, what we can see, this Hyperscreen, this is an option for more than 8,000 euros or dollars. It looks fancy, and you have this 17.7-inch screen next to an additional 12.3 passenger screen, and here 12.3 on the left side. The base setup would be this one, and then a more vertical 12.8-inch screen here in the middle, and I would recommend the base setup. Save the money, and it's also somewhat less complicated. Here the AMG-Line steering wheel with the two-spoke design looks more modern than the base steering wheel. However, you still have these capacitive controls here everywhere. You can control the right screen with that one, volume control, left side cruise control, and here on the left side then this left screen. But while driving, it's definitely harder to control. But design-wise, it looks super fancy. Neotext material here on the top part. There, this mix again between neoprene and microfiber, red contrast stitches, and this beautiful ambient lighting. You can pick different color schemes, and also here when you control the temperature unit, it has this, effect that it goes colder or warmer also visually. So ambient lighting wise, this is just beautiful indeed. Zoom more details to the screens. Let's finish up the lower middle console here. Matte wood is also available, that you have less black piano lacquer. I love that, this matte open cell wood, great. Then open this one. Cup holders are somewhat adaptive, but I can tell you they don't hold like for example glass bottles, they don't hold them that tight, so they should be a little bit tighter, and you know, that doesn't fly around. A lot of space, inductive charging pad, 2 USB-C charger here as well, then start stop button or also driving mode selection. This is the car key, by the way. Michelle lifted here. So this one has a good quality feeling, and you have this classic split middle armrest opening with more charging possibility. Instruments, I do have somewhat a problem over that because it stays like this, you know, and it's an open area, so it's prone to glaring. Here I would say it should be a little bit more hidden like classic instruments, and maybe also more, you know, in this angle. So in this flat angle, it can be a problem when it's really bright. This is the map screen, but you can also have this more classic screen, and you also have, you know, more screens available depending on what you want. You can also adjust things in the head-up display here, but with these capacitive buttons on the steering wheel, it's always somewhat hard to control. This looks a little bit weird, doesn't it? But at least you can customize it very well depending on what you actually do prefer. Head-up display available in 2 different versions, the latter one also with augmented reality. You have here the base information, speed, and also some GPS arrows, but of course even more interesting when you have these moving arrows in the head-up display. Here this Hyperscreen and the central screen, it really has this curved function, and this is pretty cool. We are in downtown Frankfurt today, and look at that, they really built the... Wow, this looks amazing, right? With all the skyscrapers. Of course, it's not available like for all single cities worldwide, but this looks really spectacular. Wow. And I mean, it can be really helpful also while navigating, because this one then also, that's the tower, I'm here, and then I have to go right around it or something. So yeah, definitely very cool feature. And you see, it's also quite responsive, good CPU power. And the thing is it easy to use? That's another question, because you have this, this like the main menu button. This is also quite large, how the apps are oriented and so on. Yeah, but sometimes you feel that when you switch something and you're not sure, like, how do I go back again, you know? So this is Apple CarPlay, the integration all the way over the screen right here. Look at that. So this would be the Apple Maps as and then we have the optional Burmester sound system, which is really great in-depth 3D sound. So yeah, that sounds amazing. So for all music lovers, this will actually pay off. And if you wonder why is it more responsive, why is it faster than before? Well, indeed they did a software update now, and this obviously speeds up the system. What about the voice input? Hey Mercedes. Hey Mercedes.
How may I help you?
Activate steering wheel heating.
Steering wheel heating is on.
So that worked. For example, that might be important because then you can separately have the steering wheel heating. Otherwise, you have to combine it with the seat heating. There's no separate button for that. Or what about the route guidance? Let's try that.
What do you want to do?
Drive me to Berlin.
Starting route guidance to Berlin.
So that is also now quicker than before indeed. So overall, a little bit more speed. It's not the fastest system overall yet, but definitely faster than before. You can see the route is already being set here, and it's also optimizing the route still, checking out which charging stations might be the best en route actually. What about a joke maybe? Tell me a joke.
Why did the tomato blush? Because it saw the salad dressing.
Okay. Screens. 1, 2, and 3 also. When you are sitting on the passenger seat, then this one here gets activated, and you can also have these nice 3D animations here. Yeah, it's a little bit of a screen overkill, isn't it? But quite responsive, that's cool. And you can do basically everything you can do in the middle screen also here. And it's so important because then you don't have to move your hand over like this a couple of centimeters, but you can stay here. Hashtag irony. So I think it's not really necessary. Yeah, what do you think? Once again, I would stick with the easier setup, pick the standard screen in the middle, leave that passenger screen, save a small car worth of money, and then you don't have this fancy hyperscreen. but your life will be actually easier. Or what's your take on that? There is one reason, however, to go for the Hyperscreen and the passenger screen, because then you can watch Autogefuehl YouTube while driving, just for the passenger, and the driver is not supposed to look, otherwise it will shut off actually. youtube.com Autogefuehl, or when you go to autogefuehl.com, that's also a shortcut to it. Oh, thank you so much, by the way, for 600,000 subscribers. You guys are awesome, and if you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe button and also activate the notification bell to not miss any of our latest videos, of course. Yeah, thank you again so much. You're the best. Rear seating. First of all, if you have that option of soft close, it also works then here for the rear. Magic. Instead of the doors is really lovely. Both the Neotext and also the Microcut microfiber. And also here, like the dampening behind it. This I really love. And also here, ambient lighting around this area. This is cool. And also, have you seen with the seats? They also have kind of like this ambient lighting outline. That's really nice. And then you can see in that middle part, it doesn't have like an all flat bottom, probably for rigidity or because they hide some batteries there or something. But let's test it as for the legroom when I would be driving. So when I have the seat, and you can see here, legroom, there's actually plenty of legroom available. So for 4 or 5 tall adults, no problem. Headroom, it does also work for me, but I do, let's say I hit the seating with my hair. So it does come close, but it works actually. Can you also probably sit in the middle part? It's a little bit harder than here. Also, you do hit it more here, even here, like this. So yeah, it works maybe for shorter way, but for adults is no problem, also tall ones. Here in this package, by the way, we also have the contrasting seat belts. That looks actually pretty cool. And also here, this microfiber plush material. You see here the bench falls a little bit backwards. To me, that's not ideal for comfort, but some also do prefer it that way. But overall, I think comfort is okay. And indeed, I'll soon show you the trunk. They do not have a fast back opening, because they say you would lose even more headroom than here in this case, because you need to attach that hatch at some point. And then you also have a separate climate control for the rear seats. It does give you some feedback, but once again, this is like one button again, and this is a trend. I hope it doesn't continue. And then lower part, 2 USB-C chargers. I love these details, that they have like this blue illumination. This is lovely, right? Flipping the logo here for the trunk, and you can see it's a normal sedan trunk like in an E-Class, not a fastback opening. The reason is that they would lose more headroom than in the rear. Here the length is 1 meter or 40 inches. The width, however, is just 90 centimeters or 35 inches, a little bit disappointing. And the height here, 55 centimeters or 21 inches. And you can see it's still enough for a normal luggage setup. And this here, hard plastic. I mean, for that price, we could also expect some fabric covering right here, can't we? This one here, by the way, 21-inch wheels, the biggest ones that are available. Of course, it looks sporty, definitely. Here also in the black styling together with the Alpine grey. But there's one drawback, because in the rear the tires are actually so wide, mixed tires as well, and so large that the rear axle steering 10 degrees is not working anymore. Then you are stuck with 4.5 degrees of the rear axle steering. So if you want the full rear axle steering, you have to stick with the 20-inch wheels, and comfort-wise, it's a good idea anyway. And now, very interesting, a second interior exclusively for you. First of all, we have the bright styling in here, bright ceiling, also these bright seats. This is here the animal skin seat, but it would almost look the same in the Artico setup, the animal-free setup. So you can also go for that leatherette in bright or in the black styling. That one available on the US market and also in Germany. And here also, without the top infotainment Hyperscreen, here you have then this matte wood surface, so it's wood but with an imprint, very interesting, and you can also pick different stylings. So when you pick the base infotainment system here, as it is with the vertical one, you can express yourself more with different decor elements, and you don't have that screen overkill. To me, this here is a little bit easier to control, it's a little bit more straightforward. The only disadvantage is when you have the base infotainment screen, like we know from the S-Class or the C-Class in the new generations, you are stuck with the piano lacquer in black right here in the middle console. So you cannot put the matte wood or something as we've seen with the Hyperscreen. That's the one downside. However, another advantage is these instruments here have the separate panel and then they are more upright. You remember in the Hyperscreen it has more this angle and that way, more upright. I can see that one better. So overall, I would indeed prefer this very base setup, save the 8 or 9,000 euros or dollars and just have a simple control and without that screen overkill. But what would you pick? This setup here, or would you actually go for the Hyperscreen and also pay the extra money for it? Tell me in the comments. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge, Mercedes EQE 500, and we're at 80 kilometers an hour and the speed limit here is lifted. Let's go. 130, 160. Woo! Oh my God. 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. Let's see the top speed here of that version. Yeah, we're reaching it right now. 215, 216 kilometers an hour. That went quick and it's still, wow, super well to control even at these higher speeds. Whoa. That was also a nice braking sound. Did you hear that? So it also has kind of like a, you know, sound when it's braking. You can activate or deactivate sound experiences. That is actually possible. But by the way, here now, I mean, there was recuperation. And of course, now I also needed to use the rear brakes because that SLK or SLC just went into our lane. So that's always the catch, you know, when you're driving a little bit fast, you have to be very cautious of what's happening in front of you. Didn't have the best feeling for that brake blending, you know, like the transition between recuperation and real brakes. In 90% of the cases, when you don't have stuff like this, in 90% of the normal driving cases, you will not use the real brakes, but recuperation will actually be just fine. So that's actually a very interesting thing. But of course, at some point you will need it. What comes to our mind is, you already heard that, it was extremely silent in here. So the same thing like this, you know, like this additional foam that is applied to the raw chassis in the building process, which is done to the new S-Class and also to the EQS, is also done here to the EQE. And we feel and hear that. Great noise insulation, super silent. And you have to think about these EVs, they don't make any engine noise that would cover, for example, some wind noises. So you might hear it a little bit more present, although it is not the case. But here, wow, super silent experience. That's definitely a great ride. So as for that, also really nice as for the whole Autobahn experience, for example, here on the motorway. And once again, the car remains really stable. As for the rear axle steering, this is very helpful then in situations where you have lower speed, makes the car more agile. At higher speeds, at some point then it steers in a parallel direction. Here we can also test the assistance systems. Here the car is being kept in the lane actually, also with very smooth transitions. And you can, yeah, we have to get off here of course. You can of course deactivate it at any time, but overall it's not a very intrusive system. I think it's actually very well calibrated. This level 3 autonomous driving we've shown to you with the S-Class and the EQS will not be available for the EQE. The EQE rather thought out to be, yeah, let's say more a driver's vehicle, I would say. Now we can also see I have some guidance in the head-up display. This one here is not equipped with the level 2 head-up display with the augmented reality, but you've maybe seen it here. There's augmented reality functions in that screen then here, where we have the camera displayed, and then inside the camera image there are these arrows that guide you then. And this is also a very helpful feature, exactly showing you of where do you have to go actually. So we also have some different driving modes here. You also have some sound feedback. In the sports mode, the sound feedback is being enhanced, for example, and that, for example, right there. So it gives you then a little bit more boost but of course you can at any time also just floor it out as we've shown to you initially, because that's what people would usually do. Most of the time you will not pick a sports mode in advance, you will just floor it out and that's it. But sound feedback is definitely enhanced, and I also have the circus mode activated. You've maybe seen it here. It's not that visible at daytime, that the ambient lighting is running through a little bit, so it's kind of like animated. At nighttime this can be a little bit too much, and then you might say, hey, I want that maybe just in mono color. So one more time, accelerating from 100 now in the sports mode. Let's go. Michelle's laughing. 160. Plop, 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. Yeah, really good X-Factor. And wow, I mean, how silent it is and how well the car is to be controlled at these higher speeds. That's really amazing. And we can also switch around a little bit with the sound experiences. For example, here, but I mean, activate, and then have the option here, and then roaring pulse is possible. That is a more low frequency sound, like a lion, like, or silver waves. This has a more high frequency sound, a little bit. Yeah, but the vivid flux is to me the one that is most audible, definitely. Yeah, and
do you also have the feeling that it's like a pod racer in Star Wars?
A pod racer in Star Wars, yeah, that could be. As long as there's no young Anakin scenes and no Jar Jar Binks scenes in it, then I'm fine with it. And here, lane change while accelerating. Great, wow, it's a great feeling for the vehicle. I mean, so silent, so agile. It really feels awesome, and I have to say, it is indeed much more fun to drive than the EQS even. I mean, the EQS, considering the length of the vehicle, was already fun to drive. And here, this is the normal version of the EQE. It's not even the AMG version, but it feels very sporty, low center of gravity, spontaneous acceleration. It just feels a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, if that's maybe there, you see also like the animated ambient lighting. Again, you can turn the sound off, you can turn the animated ambient lighting off, and then you have it a little bit more subtle. Yeah, so that's a good thing. You can really control that according to what you like. Not always we can pick every single experience option. In this case we can, so that's fine. So here when this outside sound experience, that's also possible to. So when I put sound experience off and I go to the lights, have the ambient lighting and edit settings. You see, sometimes it's a little bit complicated, and then I set it here to steady color, ocean blue, that's it. And now we have a more subtle ambient lighting. We have no sound feedback, and there you can have just a more, more quiet, more silent experience, which is not like, hey, EV in your face, y'all. So that might be something, I mean, showing off now in the review, or maybe you have your friends first time in the vehicle. Hey, I have this animated ambient lighting, and listen to that sound. But probably after a while, you will rather switch to this mode here, have one color, and also have the sound deactivated. I think this is how it ultimately will go, won't it? So I would really like to know your comments about that. Oh, that's a nice M240i in front of us, new BMW 2 Series generation. We could race that one actually. I mean, we're here less than 5... You're laughing. Less than 5 seconds in the acceleration figure here. Yeah, I mean, this is... Yeah, we're definitely competitive with this one here. Definitely. Here, especially at lower speeds. Although rear axis steering sometimes will feel artificial, here I think it's actually quite nice. It doesn't sound too artificial. Here something is, I think it's maybe like this one here or this one. Yeah, so when we have a lot of G-force here, things are flying around in the vehicle. So overall, I mean, the driving experience really great. So great noise insulation, great performance, steering is nice, the agile handling. The suspension is a very nice comfort between sportiness and comfort. These 20-inch wheels might also be a good compromise between 19 and 21 inch. 19-inch, of course, will give you better experience. Here in the sports mode, by the way, the suspension is definitely stiffer. So when you go to the comfort mode, it's definitely more forgiving. The interesting thing is, you know, we have standard suspension available or air suspension. And the cool thing is here really, even if you have the standard suspension, it gives you very good comfort. You maybe have seen a recent episode from the EQE where we're driving thinking, oh, you know, over a bump, and is that air suspension? But no, it was not. Especially in the US, they rather spec it with the standard suspension. And that's actually fine. So if you want to have the best comfort, then you go for the air suspension. But if you want to save a little bit more money, then you can easily stay with the standard suspension. And I think that's also a good thing if you like a new Mercedes EV but don't want to spend the money on the EQS. You can get a low-spec EQE, no problem, stick with the base suspension, get the base screen, so not all the fancy options, and you still have a great vehicle, which is, in a way, then also easier to handle and easier to control because you do not need all of the options, actually. And yeah, so I always tend to say, hey, I mean, don't tick all the boxes because at some point it will also be overkill. So Michel also has this passenger screen here, in this case then with the Hyperscreen combo. We have some interesting statistics there. Michel can check out while driving, for example. Yeah, like energy flow as well, also recuperation. There you can see now that the energy is being gained back to the battery. Yeah, I mean, as a driver, it's probably really distracting. That's also where I have the function where you have the YouTube watching, that when I look over, I'm being eye tracked and then the YouTube is being deactivated. I did some acceleration tests now, and in the later stages here, I will also reset the consumption meter, do a more normal route for you, that you can also tell you more about our realistic test consumption here for today. Because when you really floor it out, of course, and when you do like max speed on the highway, usually it's like that you have double the energy consumption you would have in a normal run, so to speak. And what else is interesting? We have here, for example, race vehicle level. So when we're, for example, very slow and there's like a basement ramp or something, or there's like a big hump or maybe some soft off-road conditions, when you have that air suspension, you can also raise the vehicle level. That is also a nice thing to do. And also in when you're driving really fast, the car lowers a little bit, or when you're in the sports mode. But I really have to say, last time I was passenger in this vehicle here in the US, and we were also having some bad roads. This time I'm driving myself with the air suspension, last time without, and I mean, it's extremely good, this suspension. But the base suspension was so good already that I didn't miss the air suspension. And that's definitely a key factor you can take away from that. I told you earlier in the interior part, I love the seating surfaces and the material at the inside of the doors, and here the material on the seats. These are great, and you should always try to get the animal-free version in here for that vehicle. The only thing is, that brings me back to being tall in this vehicle. It is indeed not the best seating position, same was in the EQS as well, for tall people. So it didn't seem like Mercedes paid too much attention for tall drivers. Recent new Mercedes models, is not only counting for this one, to me lack in seat ergonomic comfort, especially for taller drivers. So this is not like material related, it's more like the seat ergonomics form. I'm not exactly sure, maybe the seats are just too narrow, too slim or something, I don't know. But I feel at this moment that the ergonomics, especially in the Audis and in the Volvos, are definitely better from the seating forms. So to me, seat form in Audi and Volvo at the moment is most comfortable. Oh yeah, and the Lexus sport seats we, for example, recently had in the Lexus ES, the F Sport seats, they were also really great in comfort. But here, we have to say also when the you know, Mercedes engineers are watching, I would try to work more on the ergonomics of the seat. Maybe this was here a little bit thing of, hey, let's take a look at how it dissolves into the rest of the design of the vehicle. But I would rather say, hey, make the comfort focus first and then check out the design. Here it seems as if it would be the other way around, you know. But over here, once again, at lower speeds, I really feel that the rear axle is coming around. And yeah, I'm once again amazed by how much fun this vehicle is to drive. And from a driver's perspective, if you think about EQE versus EQS, definitely the EQE it is. Really even more fun. The EQS just feels more like a ship you steer around. And I mean, you also have sufficient legroom there in the rear. The advantage to me from the EQS is that you have this fast back hatch opening, and here you more have the sedan trunk. But then again, even in the base version, you save around 30,000 euros or dollars already from the difference. And if you spec these vehicles, the difference will be even larger. Then you'll maybe end up like 50k or something difference. So the EQE will be the better deal. It will not have, you know, big range losses in comparison to the EQS, although the EQS also gets a little bit bigger battery in the higher versions. But the technology, platform, and efficiency, this is all more or less the same. EQS may be a little bit more efficient because in terms of aerodynamics, the longer the car is, the better it is. That's also something which seems not very logical at first, but in the wind tunnel it becomes apparent then. But still, efficiency will be more or less the same. That's also why the range difference won't be mattering that much. I think the main difference than EQE, EQS will be that price difference. And then you can say, hey, you can actually easily also go for the EQS. So now we are approaching some winding corners, and it's starting to snow up here actually, because we're going higher and higher and higher. It's getting colder and colder. And that's the thing. It does not have a heat pump, neither the EQE nor the EQS. I am suspecting that this will be kind of remastered in a facelift in a couple of years or something. I think so, because our tests have shown that the range losses for the EQS already have been significant in winter times. It's also the same with other EVs, but here, since you have that missing heat pump, it's definitely a thing. So now we have two more things to come, winding corners and then the final consumption for today. Here we go, let's put to the sport mode once again, and now we're getting to a nice 90 degree. Here I also I don't have to turn the steering wheel that much. And now, wow, acceleration up the hill. Now it's also the snow here, even colder outside. Really nice. And this is very interesting. So if you compare the combustion engine models here with our EV Mercedes, the steering is way more direct and progressive. That's interesting. So to me, with the known Mercedes models, you always have to steer more. So just from that angle. And here I don't have to do that. So I really love that new steering approach. It's not that it would be too drastic or too direct. I think really very finely tuned. So also nice to have it here in these mountain roads. Now the surface getting a little bit wet. So I won't deactivate the dynamic helpers and so on. So there's always a safety thing, but here with the all-wheel drive, we also having something, you know, that we have good traction, of course, when we put it right there. Wow, it was also really beautiful always to go up here. We were actually quite often for some reviews. You also see some static shots here from outside where, you know, where we are just passing by now. Here now the road is dry from the sun. And it's such a smooth experience with that vehicle. And when we're going downhill once again, then actually you can play out all these advantages from the electric vehicles, because then you can gain back the energy, whereas with the ICEs you would not be able to do that. And now going downhill, let's talk about recuperation and also the creeping mode. So the difference is that the creeping mode is being... What the hell? Is that... having a smoker or something.
We didn't start
Really?
the fire.
So about the creep mode, that setting is being saved. So the creeping mode on and off, that depends on when you're stationary, and then actually put it in D mode and lift the brake. Does it roll forward a little bit or not? And also when it's recuperating, does it come to standstill or not? If the creep mode is on, it's going forward a little bit when you lift the brake, and it will also continue creeping until you hit the brake. If the creep mode is deactivated, then actually it just stands still. It doesn't drive forward, only when you apply the accelerator pedal. And it also will have the stopping, you know, when you have the regenerative braking. That setting is being saved even if you turn off and on the car. Recuperation modes are always being resetted when the ignition is fired, if you can say so. So the thing is that they have to do that because they need to do the homologation, so the official registration of the consumption and so on, in one recuperation mode. And they have to decide for one. They decide for the normal recuperation, which is lift your foot off the throttle and you have some recuperation, just a little bit actually, because they want to get their existing ICE Mercedes customers that they don't have a big transition. You can change them here at shifting pedals. Left, strong recuperation, then you more or less have a one pedal driving feeling and you have your strong deceleration. Right side, you can go to no recuperation at all, then it's just rolling. Or one more time, then you are in the intelligent recuperation. To me, this is the best solution because there's always the discussion, what is better, one pedal driving or rolling? Rolling can be more comfortable, not so much G-force applied, especially on passengers. The strong recuperative braking, the one pedal driving feeling can be better as for safety, that you lift your foot off the throttle and you have a deceleration already before you hit the brake maybe. And also you just drive basically with one pedal, which can also be some, you know, having some cool EV effect or something. But I think the intelligent recuperation might be the sweet spot in between. With BMW, we also have good experience with that, for example, because in that case, for example, there is no vehicle in front of you and then the car is just rolling or maybe having some, you know, like here, slight recuperation. But that's also different. Here in the intelligent recuperation in Mercedes, you have some regenerative braking. With BMW, usually it's pure rolling. But when there is a car in front of you and you are in the intelligent recuperation mode, then there is stronger recuperation. And again, this can be a good compromise that you have the best of both worlds. But here, always reset it. I think then the best solution would have been if the intelligent recuperation mode would be the standard mode that always appears at startup, and then you can maybe switch to the other one. Yeah, but either way, even if you hit the brake yourself, there's always first the regenerative braking, and then when you need more braking power, then the brakes are being applied. And here, for example, I mean, in this case, it's actually quite good that there's some recuperation because I'm holding the speed actually exactly. So this might be exactly the angle of the road going downhill where it does fit to have the slight recuperation automatically. We're really exactly holding the speed of 80 kilometers an hour. Wow, that's astonishing. And now we're dropping down a little bit, but yeah, that's the thing. So very comfortable feature then, of course, to have a stronger regenerative braking, especially when you're going down this, so you don't have to use the brakes at all. But it's really a question and also what kind of driving way or feeling you prefer. At least you can adjust it, but again, the reset thing is also something that has a regulatory issue actually. But now the big question is, what is a realistic consumption, however, today also at winter temperatures? And our final consumption, including accelerations. So you can see here is around 23 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That is some 37 kilowatt hours on 100 miles. And that means indeed 400 kilometers or 250 miles at winter temperatures, a little bit better than freezing temperatures actually, and also including some acceleration, so it can also be a little bit better. and it will be better, especially than in summertime. And then you can also score some 550 kilometers or 350 miles in ideal conditions. And now tell me, what do you think about the all-new Mercedes EQE? And also tune in to our EQE 43 and 53 episode, the AMG version, or compare it with the Mercedes EQS.